Hi, boys and girls. It's me again, Ms. Fitz. Welcome to lesson 2. I hope that as you've been reading, you have been remembering to take a sneak peek before you start reading and to keep track of where and when your story's taking place. So today, I want to teach you that when you read stories, you're not just tagging along with the characters. You are also thinking about what's going to happen next. We call this predicting. I think you've heard of this before. We may have even talked about it in other lessons, but just to refresh your memory, predicting means you're thinking about what's going to happen. So today, I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? We'll predict what might happen next. And I'm going to add that sticky right here. Okay, just like in class, right? So, most of you have read or heard the first book of The Magic Tree House. And we know a couple of things about Jack and Annie. Jack is very serious, likes real things, but Annie is younger, curious, kind of more adventurous. So if you were to read other Magic Tree House books, I bet you could predict that Jack will be the one to bring his backpack with a book of facts in it and learn more about where they are, whereas Annie is going to be more adventurous and really make the adventures happen. So if you read more Magic Tree House books, think about that, okay? Make a prediction. Well, today I'm going to continue reading Iris and Walter. So if you remember in chapter 1, they found out they were going to go on a field trip to the aquarium. So today, I'm going to practice making predictions and see if I predict correctly. Okay, chapter 2 is called The Bus Ride. On Friday morning, Miss Cherry said, "We are very lucky to have Jenny's mother come on the field trip with us today." Jenny gave her mother a big hug. "I know we are going to have a great time," said Miss Cherry. So I know that this must be Jenny, and that's her mom because she's giving her a hug. And I know that's Walter and Iris from the other pages. So remember, I'm keeping track of the characters. Now, let's go over the rules. Remember, pay attention, hang on to your partner, stay with the group. And if you get lost, stay where you are and I will find you, said Miss Cherry. "I've never been lost, have you?" Iris asked Lulu. "No, and I sure wouldn't want to be," said Lulu. "That would be scary," said Benny. "Really scary," said Walter. And if you look at their faces, they look super worried and scared, and I'm thinking whichever one of them gets lost might cry because they're very worried about that. They might get scared and cry. That's what I'm predicting. I don't know. We'll find out. The children climbed aboard the school bus. Iris and Walter chose the very last seat. They bounced up and down. Benny told knock-knock jokes. Lulu made up silly fish songs. Everyone was happy and excited. Nobody thought any more about getting lost. Chapter 3, Where's Walter? When the bus pulled up in front of the aquarium, Iris said, "Look at all the people." "Hey, Walter," said Benny, "that boy is wearing a shirt just like yours." He is, said Walter. Oh, and there's the boy right there, has the same shirt as Walter. Now, children, it's very crowded here, so keep your eyes on me, said Miss Cherry. The children walked down a dark hallway. Everywhere they looked, there were fish. Ooh, they whispered. They look a little nervous, too, being surrounded by those big fish. Sharks, said Benny. They look mean, said Iris. While the children were looking at the sharks, Miss Cherry and Jenny's mother counted everyone. Okay, follow me, said Miss Cherry. Oh, so before they go to the next exhibit, Miss Cherry, their teacher, makes sure they're all together. That's what I've had to do on field trips too. Don't want to leave anybody behind. They came to the coral reef. Wow, said Iris and Benny. Walter could not say a word. He watched the angelfish swim and shimmer, the hermit crabs scurry, and the seagrass sway. Walter had never seen anything as wonderful as the coral reef. And you can see how happy he looks. And I'm also paying attention that they're going from one exhibit to another, so something's changing, right? Are we going to see the penguins soon? Asked Iris. That's our next stop, said Miss Cherry, and she counted everyone again. Off we go, said Miss Cherry. So she must have everybody. They walked past the starfish. They walked past the seahorses. Oh, look, there are the penguins, said Iris, taking Walter's hand. Don't you think they're cute, Walter? But Walter didn't answer. Iris turned around. She saw a boy. You're not Walter, said Iris. I'm Nick, said the boy. Where's my class? He asked. Oh, he looked super worried because now he's lost. Iris looked all around. There were crowds of children. She could not see Walter anywhere. There you are, Nick, shouted a woman. I've been looking all over for you. Nick grabbed his teacher's hand and held on tight. Okay, so Nick isn't lost anymore, but Walter is, I think. Iris ran to Miss Cherry. Miss Cherry, I can't find Walter, she said. Walter's lost? Asked Jenny. I can't find him anywhere, said Iris. So Iris did the right thing. She went and told her teacher that Walter was lost because Walter was Iris's partner, right? Ready for the last chapter? Gotta have, well, so far my prediction, remember? I predicted that, well, one of the kids was gonna cry because they got lost. Well, we think it's Walter. So maybe when they find Walter, he'll be crying. That was my prediction anyway. Don't worry, said Miss Cherry. I will find Walter. Now, I want everyone to stay with Jenny's mother. Please let me come with you, said Iris. Miss Cherry looked at Iris's worried face. Come, Iris, you and I shall find Walter, said Miss Cherry. And I'm going to predict Iris might remember where she last saw Walter, which was at the aquarium, I think. They walked past the starfish. They did not see Walter. They walked by the seahorses, but Walter was not there. Iris thought about Walter, lost and alone. Poor Walter. He must be really scared, she said. And I'm wondering, is Walter crying? "We will find him," said Miss Cherry. But there were so many people. How could they ever find Walter in the big crowd? Suddenly, Iris saw him. "There he is! There's Walter!" she cried. Walter was still standing in front of the coral reef, watching the fish swim around and around. "Walter, we've been looking for you everywhere," said Iris. "Huh?" said Walter. "I was so worried," said Iris. "Why?" asked Walter. "Because you were lost," said Iris. "I was?" he asked. So Walter is definitely not crying, probably because he didn't even realize he was lost. Iris and Miss Cherry gave Walter a big hug. "I'm very happy to see you, Walter," said Miss Cherry. "And now I think it's a good time to have our picnic, don't you?" Outside, the sun was shining. Iris and Walter played tag with their friends. They sat under a tree and shared their lunches. "Time to go," said Miss Cherry. When the bus pulled up in front of the school, Grandpa was waiting. "How was the field trip?" he asked. "It was fabulous," said Walter. "We saw angelfish and hermit crabs, and Walter got lost," said Iris. "Oh no," said Grandpa. "But I didn't know I was lost," said Walter. "And I found him," said Iris. Then Iris and Walter told Grandpa the whole story, all the way home. Oh, that fish reminds me of Nemo. So, I made a prediction about somebody getting lost and crying, but that didn't happen. I mean, somebody did get lost, but nobody cried because Walter didn't even know he was lost. And that's okay. Sometimes you will make predictions that aren't right, or they don't seem right because it doesn't really happen. But that's okay. Always make predictions, and a good way to do that is to keep track of what is happening in the story. Okay? So today and every day when you are reading fiction books, let's go over what we talked about, right? Well, you take a sneak peek. Sorry, I know that one's kind of hard to see. Keep track of where and when the story's happening. And by doing that, it'll be pretty easy to make predictions, okay? Predict what might happen next. So don't forget to keep reading and talking to your mom and dad or older brother and sister about what's happening in your book. That helps us remember what's happening. And remember, make predictions. Okay, I'll see you next time, boys and girls.